Hello, my friends. Welcome to Agile Meets PMBOK Processes in Minutes. We're going to go through how to think about the knowledge areas from an Agile perspective. Now, the place to get this information is to go to the Agile Practice Guide and take a look at pages 90 to 95. I'm going to be breaking that down for you so that you got a more robust idea of how things work in this world. So we're going to use a format that we're used to on page 90 in the Agile Practice Guide. You've got this table, but I'm going to expand on the table. So when you are integrating in the world of Agile, in initiating, an example of how you should think about that is with an Agile project charter. But that is just one of the things talked about in the Agile Practice Guide on page 49 to 50. So I would love for you to go to page 49 and 50 in the Agile Practice Guide and begin to understand the concept of an Agile project charter. Okay. Now, to go a step further, when you are initiating, there are other things you need, like a product roadmap, like a product vision. These are things that are going to help you effectively initiate, and at the end of the day, obviously, integrate. Now, when it comes to the world of Agile, we don't have a stakeholder register under most circumstances. Instead, we have the product owner's knowledge, the product owner, the Scrum Master, and the developers. We have their knowledge about stakeholders. And that's what we're going to go off on. We don't have a formal stakeholder register. Now, getting into planning, the way we plan is different layers. The product roadmap is a good way of you starting to plan. But on top of the product roadmap, we also have release plans. We also have iteration plans, which is like your sprint plans in the world of Scrum. And then we also have the product backlog. We also have a sprint backlog. Okay. So however you want to define these things, think about them in the world of Agile, but within a knowledge area lens. Going into the world of executing and integration, you want to think about these concepts. Think about a team charter, also known as team agreement, also known as team contract, also known as social contract. And think about the concept of team accountability. Okay, getting into monitoring and controlling, we could have our burn up charts, burn down charts, the concept of velocity, the concept of KPIs of an agile nature. Think about the concept of backlog refinement, and that is a way we do our monitoring and controlling. As far as closing is concerned, we don't have any formal documents, but we do have the concept of retrospectives that close out each iteration. Okay. Now, because Agile is so fluid and it's so dynamic, there's going to be a number of these things that could easily fit into these lower boxes. So I'm going to take a very quick shot at explaining them because I know lots of you are curious about, okay, how do I think about scope in Agile? How do I think about scheduling Agile? So I'm going to help you with some of these concepts. They're not going to be processes. Remember, we don't have a whole bunch of processes in this world. Case in point, you got the Agile Manifesto. What is it? 2 pages, right? You got Scrum as a framework. How much is it? 13 pages in the current Scrum guide. So we don't have a whole bunch of processes, but you do need to be putting yourself into this pattern of thinking, all right? And it's not an all-encompassing list. They're concepts that I want you to remember, all right? So in the world of scope, when we're planning, there are a lot of these things that we could use to effectively scope out a project. So your product roadmap, your product backlog, your sprint backlog, these can also come into play here as well. But beyond these two, we can add a few more scope specific things. We can add user stories. We can add the concept of story mapping. We could add the concept of the minimum viable product or the minimum marketable feature or the minimum business increment. We could add the concept of the INVEST acronym. And then when it comes to scope and monitoring and controlling as we know it in the parallel world, we can talk about sprint review. We could talk about the sprint or backlog, I beg your pardon, refinement. So this is all straight out of my head. I'm not reading it from anywhere, so it might go a little bit slow at times. Talking about schedule, we have the concept of wideband Delphi. We have the concept of the Fibonacci sequence, which we use when we do our wideband Delphi. We have the concept of time boxing, of course, because we don't have a big old schedule. Instead, we've got a fixed time box where we fit things in. So we have the concept of sprints with your fixed duration. We also have the concept, apart from wideband Delphi, let me go in here and put silent relative sizing. Okay, that's when you use animal sizing, t-shirt sizing, things like that. As far as monitoring and controlling, again, we have these charts and things that we monitor. We also have the cone of uncertainty that we talk about here too. Going into the world of cost, we don't have a big old dog and pony show when it comes to cost. We have the concept of a stable team of adults. We have the concept of little change when it comes to the team. And what this means is team salaries are pretty much fixed. And then we have other components that could be in the project or the endeavor, but they're not so earth-shattering that we need to have a big old budgeting and cost process within our agile confines. We leave that to the business, but again, we do, as the Agile Practice Guide puts it, on-demand costing. And to take that term, let's put it in here. We use the concept of on-demand scheduling as well. So just keep that in mind. Okay. So when it comes to cost, I'm just going to read for you. I'm going to read this for you from pages 90 forward. So this piece we're about to read is under cost, and that's on page 92. And it just reads, instead of heavy planning, lightweight estimation methods can be used to generate a fast, high-level forecast. So it's quick, fast. We're not going to waste a whole bunch of time. Moving into the concept of quality, some things that help you in quality from an agile perspective are the concept of acceptance criteria, the concept of definition of done, the concept of definition of ready, again, your INVEST acronym, and the concept of frequent checks, frequent inspection, right? The whole concept of a cadence for your sprint review. Okay, let's make this a little bit bigger. Obviously, I have a whole lot in planning. All right. As far as cost and the monitoring and controlling aspect, I would just say handled as needed at higher levels by product owner, business team, product owner, business team, customer, higher levels. Okay. Now, as far as quality, again, we have the actual carrying out of our sprint review. As far as quality is concerned, believe it or not, the daily Scrum is a great way of you keeping on track quality-wise. I know we do not have anything here in the traditional world of PMBOK page 25, but I want to challenge you that executing in the world of Agile, you need to think about it differently. We're executing on these areas continuously through our daily Scrum. So even though here is blocked, I want you to think in terms of knowing what is happening on the project, and if there are any impediments, you could look at these blocks here as being one big old thing you're executing, you're monitoring and controlling. But we'll just keep it to page 25 so that you don't get lost and you're not thinking too much about it. Okay. All right, let's move on. Let's move this make this a little bit smaller just so that it fits on the screen. Okay. So sprint review, we also have sprint retrospective, which is a great way of keeping quality in check from a more process standpoint. Sprint review from a more product standpoint, if you will. As far as quality is concerned for the executing, remember when you are carrying out executing in quality, it's checking the process. So you could say in the world of Agile, we don't have to meet only at the end for a retro. A retro could be at any time. You could also say this is the inspect, adapt mindset. Okay. Now getting into resources, one of my favorite areas here, again, we have these things front and center. We have this front and center as far as the team is concerned. Now, reading from the Agile Practice Guide, it says, projects with high variability benefit from team structures that maximize collaboration. So it's important for us to get collaboration right through team charters and the like, right? Whatever you call it. Just know those are all interchangeable terms. Team charter, same as team agreement, team contract, social contract. Okay. And the PMI tell you in the Agile Practice Guide, collaborative teams may facilitate accelerated integration of distinct work activities, improve communication, increase knowledge sharing, such and such. How do you think the team collaborates? In the sync up. It's the daily Scrum, the retrospective as well. This is how the team executes the concept of collaboration. There are other things that we refer to as the concept of swarming, the concept of mobbing to get work done, collaborating, hitting that work in the jaw. Okay, when it comes to executing though, there's one more I should add up here, and I'm sure some of you might have caught that, and it's the concept of retrospectives. Retrospectives, they kind of fall into that lessons learned, but more pragmatic, more dynamic and driven at the moment. You know, in the world of executing and predictive, we talk about manage project knowledge, and sometimes you don't actually collate lessons learned until the dying hours. It shouldn't be the case. It should be all through. So we could put retrospectives up there as well. All right. So as far as resources are concerned, the PMI say planning for physical and human resources is much less predictable in projects with high variability. In these environments, agreement for fast supply and lean methods are critical to controlling cost. So you want to have more of a lean mindset, okay? You also want to have a mindset of team trust. As the Agile Manifesto says, give the team the environment and support they need and trust them to get the job done. That needs to be the overall mindset here. All right. As far as monitoring and controlling, again, we have a very lean set of tools. So you'll see a lot of repetition all throughout this theme of monitoring and controlling across the board. All right. Let's make it a little bit smaller because we're adding more and more and more stuff. So hopefully you're following along successfully and all I'm saying is making sense to you. All right. Let's move into the concept of communications. One of the best places to go to understand how to communicate in the world of Agile is these things again. So I'm just gonna take one of them, and then you know what it means. Actually, let me cut from here and put it in here. Yeah, at least you know what these are now. In terms of executing, I'll just read for you from the Agile Practice Guide. It says, project environment subject to various elements of ambiguity needs to communicate evolving and emerging details more frequently and quick. So as far as the execution of this, think about things like the information radiator. Think about the concept of osmotic communication. Think about the concept of the fishbowl window concept, okay? Now, there are a few other things that I could have mentioned, and like I told you, this is all ad hoc. It's unrehearsed. So there's some stuff that I'm remembering along the way, but we also need to talk about where the concept of T-shaped scales fits. And I'm glad we're kind of doing it out of strict order because I'm making you think all across the board, which is helpful for your PMP exam. So when we talk about T-shaped scales, where do you think it fits? Fits right here, right? Team trust, and let's put T-shaped scales over here. T-shaped scales. All right. So we're doing very well, and we're getting towards the end of this whole adventure. Getting to the end. All right. So going into risk. When we talk about planning risk management, you got to understand the product backlog to start with. There actually are a number of things that we've talked about that could help. So I'm just going to put them into risk: product roadmap, release plans, product backlog, sprint backlog, iteration plans. You want to examine all of those for risks. And there's one key thing you're going to get from all of this that you should think of, and it's the risk-adjusted backlog. Let me make all this a little bit smaller and focus on this one. So the risk-adjusted backlog. And you could also have teams that use the concept of risk registers. Do not think it's strange. These are absolutely used by some teams in Agile. Okay, so don't listen to the myth that says people who do Agile don't do risk registers. That's not true. That's not true. All right. So the risk register could be used. And then the concept, when it comes to the monitoring and controlling and the executing, you could say let's just use the overall concept of spikes. It could be an architectural spike. You could use a concept of enablers. Okay. You also want to use the concept of the daily scrum, because the daily scrum is where we uncover impediments, but an impediment is a realized risk. So a risk is an impediment waiting to happen. So it would make sense that before stuff becomes really bad, you as a team are aware and you are escalating as needed to your Scrum Master, who should be on the ball as far as anything to do with risks, impediments, whatever you want to call them. All right, going into the concept of a risk, let's read in the Agile Practice Guide. It says high variability environments by definition incur more uncertainty and risk. To address this, projects managed using adaptive approaches make use of frequent reviews. And this is what I always say, the frequent reviews. This is a risk coping mechanism. Yes, I know it sounds unbelievable, but trust me, it's a risk coping mechanism, frequent reviews. Okay. Getting into procurement, let's turn the page over to page 95 in the Agile Practice Guide. It says, in Agile environments, specific sellers may be used to extend the team. The collaborative working relationships can lead to a shared risk procurement model. So I want to just type in here, shared risk procurement model. Okay. I also want you to be aware of page 77 in the Agile Practice Guide, where you have Agile contract types talked about. Go read that. It's extremely robust and it's great. One of my favorites there is favoring full service suppliers. That is a great strategy. And then you can bring these folks in as partners and have them understand the Agile mindset. So I'll just put integrate suppliers as team extension, right? As far as all of this, we have our sprint reviews. When it comes to how effective the seller has been. All right, let's make this a little bit smaller so we can get the last piece of the puzzle for tonight in, and that is stakeholders. So I'm going to make this really, really small. Got to get really, really small. Okay. And here we go into stakeholders. So when it comes to planning stakeholder engagement, I'm going to leave you with a thought that says business people and developers must work together daily. So let's see how big we can make some of this stuff without, oh, we're going off screen already. Okay. It's kind of tricky. All right. Well, the thought is business people and developers work together daily. Okay, that needs to be an overarching idea. And this is also going to help you in executing. As far as the extension of the team where stakeholders are concerned, the team charter also helps you understand the conduct with these folks. As far as the avenues for you to engage stakeholders, you could have backlog refinement sessions. You could have sprint review also as a way of engaging them. And in terms of monitoring and controlling, same thing, sprint review. And at some points, it really depends. The daily scrum could also be looked at, especially in the earlier stages when senior management may attend those, even though they shouldn't, even though they, but there's no rule saying senior management is not allowed to attend. We generally want the team to be free, but if there's a need to attend those, then by all means. Okay. And that is it, my friends. We are done with page 25 in an Agile lens. Okay. So I'm going to put this up here. I am going to ensure that there is an image somewhere for you to download. Okay, I'm going to put an image out there on the web that will be big enough for you to see all this stuff I've been talking about. I'm going to make it a full size, like maybe 16. And in that way, you're going to be able to download the image and use it to study. Okay. You got any questions? Do let me know. Put in a link below. Remember, when you're listening to this again, just speed it up ×2. Because when I'm putting this stuff together, I want you to hear every word I'm saying and what I'm thinking. So it goes a little bit slow when I'm recording it. And remember, I'm not reading from a book. So do excuse that. All right. Thank you very much, my friends. All the best on the exam. If you're looking for training, coaching, and help for your PMP, the website to go on down to is praizion.com. That's praizion.com. We have training, coaching, and help for you across different topics, whether you're taking the PMP, the CAPM, whether you are done with your PMP and you need leadership coaching, or you need a course on scaling or Microsoft Project or Jira. The list is endless. Go on down to praizion.com. Thank you. All the very best. Bye for now.